Hello, everyone. Welcome to a session on researchable research questions. My name is Kim Luby, and I am here because I know from experience that the struggle with finding sources is often your research question. And throughout this session today, I have two foster kittens in my lap, and they might make a surprise appearance. So the more you keep watching, you might see some really tiny kittens. And if you do have questions unrelated to kittens, but more related to your research project, you can find me at kluby@uncc.edu. So the goal with a research question is finding a research question that's worth investigating that is going to lead to a research problem that is worth solving. So that means that you want to find something that is more than just interesting and is going to actually solve a problem to convince other readers to read your research project. So step one, working with your topic. What can you do? So the idea is if you are stuck finding sources, this is going to solve a lot of your problems. So trust me on this one. So first off, let me make myself a little bit smaller since I'm blocking the screen. The easiest thing you can do is broaden and narrow your topic. So oftentimes there's just one piece of your project that is just way too narrow, and that's why you're struggling to find sources. So what you'll want to do is broaden that part. And this means that if you keep it too narrow, you're going to have a really hard time finding resources. So the easiest way is to broaden it up, usually to the most well-known example of your topic, or at least to a similar problem. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later, don't worry. And the next idea is narrowing it down. So it's often a common thing I've seen that students have a topic that's just way too narrow, or excuse me, way too broad, meaning that you're going to be overwhelmed by the amount of sources that you have, and those sources are going to be really disjointed. So what you'll need to do is narrow it down. And this can mean just choosing a part of your topic to focus on, or adding in another more specific aspect to your topic. So broadening and narrowing the source type. So you can broaden. So if you broaden your keywords, you're most likely going to get more books, and articles are going to be just way too all over the place that if you keep your search terms really broad, because academic articles are very, very specific. So it's going to be hard if you're just looking up by just one or two keywords. And then narrowing with your keywords is going to get you a lot more articles, but it may be too narrow to find a book, because the book is going to be on a much more broader topic, meaning that you're going to struggle if you have just way too many narrow keywords trying to find a book. So how can I broaden and narrow? So there's three really easy aspects. Move myself to the bottom. So the three ways to broaden and narrow are by population, location, and time. So population is going to be like all the things I have listed here. It's anything that makes a human different or makes a population different from another group. Next is location. So this is going to be also pretty easy. This is going to be a specific city, state, country, or you could narrow it down to a particular type of location, like a rural or an urban area. And then finally, time. So this is going to be something like the last 5 years, 21st century, during a particular war, a time period that makes that time period different from another. And that one's the least common. The easiest way is going to be population if you have a human aspect of your research project, which I'm going to guess that most of you do. Location next. Location can come or go. It really depends on if you really have a geographic aspect of your project. You may or may not. That might help you narrow it down to pick a particular geographic area. And then, like I said, time is going to be the least popular, but you still might help you out. Even just, narrowing it down to the last 5 years might help you. Another thing you can do is changing out your keywords. My face is just always in the way. So that could be if you if you choose a population like LGBT, Black, youth, there's going to be different ways of saying those words. So with LGBT, that could be changed out to queer, gay, homosexuality. For Black, you could change to African American, people of color, African descent. And also I made a note here that if you are doing historical research on a population, you're going to have to keep in mind that the ways we have referred to groups of people has changed over time. So that's why I added some descriptors for Black that are, you know, obviously very dated now, but if you're doing research in the 1960s or the 1800s, these terms might be a lot more useful because we weren't using the terms African American or people of color at that time. And you can continue on here in my list with youth, college students, older people, and then you have the idea too that sometimes your keywords are not, you think they're specific, but they have multiple meanings. So that's why I included here seniors versus seniors. So a senior could be a senior in college, a senior in high school, or could be an elderly person. So you want to keep that in mind when you're thinking about your keywords. So let's work with a sample topic together. So got to work with me here. I want to do research on homelessness and poverty. So here I have just searched for homelessness and poverty in the library homepage, and this is the list of titles that I got in my results. So you can see here with this that I've got a book on the faces of homelessness and poverty, another book, but it's also talking about unemployment, an article that's also adding in family breakup, another article that's talking about healthcare needs. So it's really all over the place. So this is why it's important to broaden and narrow your research and your keywords, because you might be overwhelmed. You know, maybe you are just interested in homelessness and poverty and just all over aspects. So all of these articles will be useful, but maybe you're just interested in homelessness of childhood or children, and you can see that some of these just might not relate to your research topic. So again, broadening and narrowing. So we're going to keep mine. All right, we got one kitten that is getting a little brave, so I'm going to put him up here. Say hello. See, I told you there'd be kittens on the screen. If you keep watching, there might be some more. All right, so back to my research question on homelessness and poverty. So I've taken those three areas, population, location, and time, and I'm going to narrow down by population and location. So population, I'm going to choose sexual orientation. And then for location, I'm just going to use a country. And for now, I'm not going to choose anything from the time category. So now I have searched homelessness, poverty, and LGBT, and these are my search results. So now I've got something talking about policy and looking at LGBT students. I have got, see, they escaped. They're little, they like to get a move on. Gotta wrangle them in. I have an article that's talking about just a review of the literature, meaning that it's looking at all of the research that is available on the LGBTQ spectrum and homelessness. Another one talking about violence and discrimination. One talking very specifically about HIV risk and also specifically in the Metro Detroit area. Another one about Detroit, and another one that's moving into critical geography and intersectional feminism. So you can see all over the place. So again, might need to narrow it down a little bit more. So I did that, and I also changed out LGBT and I put in queer instead. And I got some different results. So this is me just changing out one of my search terms. Got some more about the family, got something in Canada, policing and incarceration, talking about higher education. We've got an area of San Francisco. So again, all over the place, but this is still good because you can browse through here and see if anything is interesting to you or a different focus that you might want to take your research. So next thing is, what is your actual research question? So some possible questions that I could have with homelessness, poverty, and LGBT is, first off, maybe I want to look for policy. I want to see what policies exist that are helping LGBT youth. Maybe I also want to look at experience. I just want to know what are the unique experiences that LGBT youth are facing with homelessness. Or maybe just a review of the research, that I just want to know in general what research is being done about this topic and what research is missing. So I'm looking for whose voices aren't being heard or recorded. And again, remember we talked about the importance of changing out keywords. So if I still have LGBT, you can look at these keywords here that are also all aspects of that, and that could also help you focus down if you don't want to look at the entire LGBT spectrum. Again, with Black, I could add in more specifically the Black experience of LGBT. Youth, you can see I've got a lot more here. Some different words for homelessness. Housing insecurity is also another key term for homelessness. And poverty also has different wording. So I could choose food insecurity. And then there's also the words poor and then destitute. I think destitute is a bit of a dated term now, but if I'm looking for more historical research, that might be useful. So finally, our third section, sources and evidence. And this is the hard thing to understand, that sometimes the evidence you want just does not exist. And that is really hard to understand. And I hope to explain that in another video coming soon. But for now, you just have to keep the idea that sometimes the information you're looking for has just not been found yet. So that's why you might want to change different parts of your research. So thank you for following along with me. If you have any questions, you can find me at Atkins Library and at kluby@uncc.edu. And I'll hold up the baby just one more time to say goodbye and thank you for listening to my video.